Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Time for Truth. My name is Christina and I hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I've been on. Things have been kind of busy after doctor's appointments and whatnot, snowstorm. We've had a lot going on. But today, having a chai latte, which is like a secret little recipe. It's delicious. I hope you're enjoying something nice and warm and fulfilling on this winter Sunday. That is so good. So I make that like all by myself with a special little recipe. And I'm pulling out the tea bag out of my pocket. It's called it's like a chai tea, and then I add vanilla and cinnamon, and then whipped half and half. It's delicious. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the nuclear family and what that means. Kind of a heavy topic in today's world because families are made up in many different ways, but I'm going to narrow it down a little bit into a nuclear family within the military. So I actually looked up some of the definitions and some of the things that are said about how the military deals with families and with kids, and kind of the collateral damage that goes on with kids that are bounced around and within the military system. So I actually have a book that I have read, and it talks about recovery for adult children of alcoholics. And when, you talk about a certain topic, and then all of a sudden, like, there's a subset of that topic, and then there's an even more subset. So growing up in a nuclear family within the military system with alcoholism present in the family. So I'm going to start off with a moment of positivity and read this part because I think it's a really good way of looking at things independently and uniquely for each of us with our own experience. So this is a part of the introduction on page 4. There is no such thing as growing up unaffected when alcoholism is present in a family, but it is difficult for the individual to acknowledge these problems. Arrested emotional development is inescapable unless the effects of this disease are dealt with. Alcohol is an equal opportunity destroyer. Whoever gets in its path is affected. And I think that that is a very poignant and devastating paragraph, because truly alcohol is a destroyer of the individual and all of those around them. And there's also another part too that talks about how we who grow up in the chaos of alcoholism within a military family and a nuclear family, how the lessons that we are taught just by existing within that kind of dysfunction. So this is a great book. It's an older book, but it's probably in conjunction with Al-Anon. And so I wanted to talk about that because I think with a nuclear family, and the definition of a nuclear family is a couple and their dependent children regarded as a basic social unit. So that's out of dictionary.com. Then if I look at an AI overview, for instance, of a nuclear family in the military, so spouses and children, facing unique challenges, including frequent relocations, long separations during deployments, and high stress environments. And then it goes on to say, yet they are supported by specialized built-in resources. And I wouldn't really say that that's the case for my personal experience, having grown up in a military family. There were no built-in resources. It talks about the impact on children with regard to support networks, role transitions, and so talking about, the family that we grow up in, the nuclear family, our environment, in our developmental years, have a serious impact on our ability to grow into adulthood in a well-adjusted way. I had issues with that. I'll say that. And, again, with the subset, there's also domestic abuse, child abuse, terrorism within a family. And there was nobody really, to tell what was going on. We're either being bounced around from one place to the next, coming or going, separated from the, other family, extended family members by virtue of moving around in a military family. So I've taken a long look at some of the dysfunction in my own family, my own nuclear family, and it's wild. I mean, really, I always felt like we were just all like little islands floating along as this separated unit, but together, like because we had to be. But there was so much dysfunction in the family that until I was able to get away from it and look at my own issues that developed because of that dysfunction, was I able to actually see the dysfunction and then get educated about it, how it affected me and my ability to become a better person. So one of the things that I feel like, gave me a lot of joy was reading books. So I was always reading books. And the other day on Twitter, I saw this woman that I really respect a lot. She had tweeted something about a book that she recommended reading. And I thought, I need to get that book. And then I was actually out and about running errands, and I stopped by our little local library. And lo and behold, sitting right there waiting for me was that book. And that book is this: Little Girls in Pretty Boxes. And this is actually the journalistic take on the gymnastics, figure skating, anything having to do with women, girls in sport. And this book is by Joan Ryan, the person that I had seen the book on was a thread on Jennifer Say, S-E-Y. She was a gymnast. And I haven't begun this book yet, but I am planning to read it. But it just brought back how much I loved gymnastics, and then what horrible experiences some of these girls had with being abused within the system, injured along the way, not supported. And it really made me think about growing up in a military family and how once a segment of a population gets segregated or isolated, they have less resources. They're more influenced by those that are in the chain of command, so to speak. And I'm taking from this forward and reviews that I've read on this book that's what it was, an abusive chain of command. And so I actually pulled up some of this is one of the things out of my scrapbook that I put together. One was one of those things that you get when you go to this happened to be Opryland. And then some of the banners from the school and gymnastics and photos. And this was probably in 9th grade, 7th, 8th, and 9th, when I was really into gymnastics, and even younger on basketball. That was me on the basketball team. And I loved doing sports, but we were always moving around, so I didn't really get the opportunity to progress within that. And I remember at one point being in Auburn, Alabama. My father was going to college at Auburn University. And that actually includes like a scary house kind of story. We had moved to Opelika, and we were living on the economy, which means not on the military base. And it was in this house that was totally haunted. So my mom said, we can't stay here. She moved us to the still living, outside of the base, but to a home that was closer to the university. And going to the university, they had a huge Olympic-sized swimming pool with diving boards and the platform diving boards. And that was like, I wanted to be like I wanted on the diving team. But of course I wasn't college age then, but I still wanted to do that. And I remember jumping off of there, not really getting encouragement from anybody about pursuing sports. So I really follow the women's sports issue right now with, perverted men who are claiming that they're women and are saying that they belong on the women's sports teams. No, women, men are not women. So it's made me think back on the dysfunctional family, what happens with, the outcome of growing up in a dysfunctional family, and what is happening in today's society with broken families, with, same-sex kind of setups, with kids being confused about, what is real and what is not real in the world. Because I had that confusion about what's real and what's not real because we're kids. Our brain's still developing. We don't know. I looked to the adults to guide me, and I really didn't get a lot of guidance. So I think it's tough for everybody right now in today's world. But being based in reality is the first step. It's like with recovery from anything, dysfunction in your family, abuse in the family, alcoholism, drug addiction, whatever the symptom, the action is recovery, acceptance, and change. And, with everybody having it, so hard these days, oh, no, I look back on those that came before me, my grandmothers, and my great-grandmothers, and these were ladies that were going out there and getting it done. And case in point is my grandma Nellie. That's her. She worked her way up to become the head of the laundry department at the hospital where I was born in Maryland. And this is her mother, who was a solid Appalachian from West Virginia. And so these are ladies that, they were strong women, and I have to look to that of, what they actually were up against. They couldn't even get a bank account. They couldn't buy a house. They couldn't do anything without a man. So the same goes for my paternal grandmother. She raised 12 kids, in poverty, absolute poverty. So, I had to look at where my father came from and, what he might have lived through and why he did the things that he did to his family. And, alcoholism, killed 4 of his brothers, at least 3 of them that I know about, as a direct result. So, my grandmother didn't drink. She wasn't an alcoholic, but, the man she chose to marry was, and it's a hereditary disease. And so she was burdened with the disease of alcoholism. And they even had a still in the old house. So when they did the rehab of the old house down there, one of the things that they found was the old still. So then my father came from, that environment, down, he was, you know, one of 12 kids, poverty, uh, in a rural area. He didn't have a lot of opportunities, you know, to do anything to raise himself up out of that. And so these men left home. They left home as soon as they could to join the military, or you know, join the traveling, whatever choices they had available to them. They were trying to improve their lives. And so, you know, this is my family, young. You know, by this time, you know, my mom had already um, been married once, had my brother here, and then I was the first of my parents' union, and then this is my younger sister, and there was another one yet to come. So, but this was the early days, and this was going back to visit my father's family, you know, his mother. And we as kids, we didn't know these people because we didn't live near there, and we weren't a part of holidays on a regular basis. So as we got older, us kids, you know, my father was deployed. He was deployed to Vietnam twice, to Korea. Later, he didn't live, you know, with the family. He was living in, you know, a trailer essentially that they bought so that he could be up there by the Pentagon. So we didn't have like a normal kind of upbringing. There was dysfunction, there was separation, there was a reorganization when he would come back, and all of a sudden my mom's no longer the boss and he is. Like, it was weird. But anyways, my mom did a marvelous job. Look, she was raising 3 young kids, you know, no husband, and taking care of all the things that we needed. And she was living in LA at this time. We were over by where my other aunt, my dad's sister, was living. So at least they had, you know, a support system of sorts back then. And it was a bad time back then. You know, Vietnam War was, you know, there were a lot of agitators and riots, and you know, to be in the military, or to be known to be a part of the military, you know, system was, you know, not of thank you for your service. It was, you know, people were not made to feel welcome during that time. And I remember when we lived in California, I'm trying to think of the name of Bellflower, or over in that area in Southern California, somebody shot bullets into the house that we were living in. And I remember my mom rattling the screen door, and the police came and dug bullets out of the screen. Another time, somebody was walking back and forth in like really heavy boots across our front porch. You know, my mom dealt with all of those things with, you know, without her husband there, with little kids. So that's something. And as we got older, you know, the family dynamics changed again. And then my younger brother came on the scene. And that was around the time that we were living in Alabama and Auburn. But by the time my brother was born, we'd already moved again, and we're living in Germany. So my little brother has dual citizenship, U.S. and German. So we lived in Germany twice. The first time in Hanau, West Germany. I was young then, like brownies, Girl Scouts kind of thing. And then we actually moved back over there later when I was, you know, college aged. I had graduated from high school, and I had health issues back then with an undiagnosed femoral hernia that was causing me a lot of problems. No resources, you know, really it was like, just deal with it. Or when it was absolutely, you know, I'm curled up on the floor, you know, throwing up and crying, finally taken to the ER. But it wasn't until I was in college that was finally corrected. So, but this is me when I was working for the civil service over in Germany. And I worked at this point, I was working at the community counseling center. and I was trying to go to college at that time, and I actually got accepted at the University of Maryland. But then the femoral hernia acted up. I got taken by ambulance. Then it was finally diagnosed and repaired, and then I didn't get asked back to college. So that's how that went. But you know, in the meantime, you know, my dysfunctional alcoholic father had, you know, set up my life plan of how everything would go for me. And it's just wild, isn't it? Like, I mean, I try to think who would do that and why, but it was like, this is your life plan. This is what you're going to do. These are the time frames. And he was such, like, talking about my self-esteem after he had beat me and my little sister. Like, I still don't know my multiplication tables to this day because we were beaten with a belt when we didn't know our multiplication tables. I mean, we were little kids, little girls. Like, and I really think that it was my father's attempt to, like, separate us and to separate the females, to have this power, like the sick power over us. And it worked. Because in later years, he ostracized and shunned my mom and me, you know, after, you know, saying that I need to have self-esteem. Like, how am I supposed to have self-esteem when it's been beaten out of me? Like, that's just the craziest thing. I've still never really come to terms with that whole thing. But one of the things that I will say is, over the course of my lifetime, the dysfunction, the shunning, the lack of support, honesty, transparency, discussions, none of it ever went on. It was like the big white elephant in the room. Like, you can't talk about it. But then, you know, when I became alcoholic, then everybody could talk about it because then I'm the black sheep in the family. Well, you know, bring it on. 20 years sober, over 20 years now. And, you know, have good relationships with my aunties. And I even asked one of them, you know, how come the ladies in the family never became alcoholics? And my auntie said, you know, because when did you ever see any of us drink? And she's right. And one of my aunties was having her 100th birthday party. Okay, that's a big deal. 100 years. And she grew up, was born and raised and stayed in the same area all of her life. And so her birthday was coming up, and we had traveled down in our motorhome to stay down there on the Chesapeake Bay is where it is. And oh my God, it's hilarious. So we got our, you know, RSVP, you know, offered to help the night before to set everything up. It's always at the firehouse, you know, that's how the locals do it, and it's always a joy. So the ladies cook and everything's happening, and guests are made to feel so welcome, and there's abundance of food, and it's Southern. So you got the Southern iced tea. They stopped allowing alcohol at those, which is like an improvement because they used to allow alcohol at those places and it was not good. But for my auntie's 100th, we were sitting at the night before, and I get a message from one of my cousins, and she goes, oh, you must be so excited to meet your new brother. And I'm like, what? And I told my husband, I'm like, apparently I have a new brother through Ancestry.com. And he's like, what? I said, that's what I said. So my cousin felt horrible because she had spilled the beans, because apparently I wasn't supposed to learn about this. Nobody had told me in the family that all of a sudden some person had reached out to one of the male cousins, however Ancestry.com works, claiming that there was a paternal link. And so it ended up being my father, and that's his new son. So my new brother, a half brother through ancestry. I already had one half brother, my older brother, because my mom had been married previously to, before marrying my father. And her first husband was also an alcoholic. So he's dead. He didn't live very long. And so my mom and dad met, and then she got pregnant with me. And then all of a sudden, like, I think my father felt trapped. That was how I always grew up feeling, was that I was the cause of my father having to marry my mom because she got pregnant. And I felt like he resented me. I felt that deeply all of my life. And then all of a sudden now I find out that, my father was out there catting around, and this woman, in my opinion, the mother of my Ancestry.com half brother, well, she was a lucky one. Yeah, so whatever her decision-making process was at the time that she found out she was pregnant with my father's child and decided not to tell him, yeah, she was the smart one, because she dodged a bullet. So anyways, I have a picture of me with my two half-brothers. So this one is my half-brother from my mom's first marriage. He doesn't talk to me. He's in Virginia. This one is my new Ancestry.com half-brother on my father's side. Isn't that wild? And so nobody told me until the night before this party. Well, my cousin, because she probably realized she doesn't know. And then I would have just walked into this, because my brother and my younger sister and my younger brother don't talk to me. It's been when my mom finally left my father, he told us, he called me. I was living in Citrus Heights, California. He called me on the phone. He's like, if you don't side with me, then you're not going to get your inheritance. And I'm like, dude, why are you involving your adult kids in your divorce? You're in Germany. You already made mom jump through 72 hoops to even get you served, instead of just letting her get you, be on her way away from you. Holy Christ. So anyways, what am I at? 27 minutes here. All right. So anyways, so then now I've never seen my father look at any of his kids with my mother like he adores his Ancestry.com son. The sun raises and sets on this man. Oh, and this man and his family all came to the party. So this man has a wife and 2 adult kids. And he wanted nothing to do with me. I sent him a Facebook post, message, private message, hello, and then he goes, oh yeah, you kind of remind me of my sister. And then I'm like, well, that sounds like a lopsided compliment to me, but whatever. Here's how my father looks at his new son. Is that wild? And I'm telling you, never in my life have I seen my father look at any of us like that. He's in love. Oh my God. So anyways, as you can tell, I have a lot of unresolved issues with the dysfunction that took place in my family. And why would I have this long-standing angst? Because none of it is resolved. And everybody acts like I'm the problem because I talk about it. Because I became an alcoholic, and then I got sober, and then I did some work and found out that, yeah, I'm not the problem. Did I have a difficult time being bounced around all over creation with no resources, with being bullied, with being sexually assaulted along the way, and then having Darvo, where it's turned around as if I'm the problem. So that's why I started this channel, is to talk about the things that really tick me off. And one of the things that really ticks me off is that in my whole, making amends with people and trying to do the right thing, No, none of that's accepted. No, no, I'm absolutely persona non grata, like no forgiveness, no. And so I just reject that. I reject it fully, and I say, the shunning, the ostracizing, um, the negative behavior of treating one person as if they're the problem for the entire family being in dysfunction. No, I reject that. So I'm continuing to do the work. I'm still amazed that I found this book at my little local library. I highly recommend all the little local libraries. And if you have books that you've read and want to, maybe donate, the little local libraries are the place to do it. So with that, I'm going to just say Ancestry.com, that was mind-blowing. We still laugh about that. And that dude doesn't have, they go away on vacations together. He doesn't have anything to do with me. None of them. They don't talk to me. In fact, when my father dies, I don't even know how they'll contact me. Like, that's an unknown at this point, because none of them have anything to do with me. So I'm just going to set the record straight about, I didn't start it. I was a kid, and I was just trying to grow up in a military family, in a nuclear family, in an alcoholic family, and an abusive family. Verbal abuse, physical abuse, and my 3 siblings act as though none of that happened. And that's fine if that's the way that they want to proceed. But what I know is that that kind of emotional abuse continued even after my mom divorced my father. And then it was set upon us, my mother and I. The war was then with us. And ostracizing and criticizing and shunning and whatever he told his new Ancestry.com son, like apparently that was a bridge too far, because that man didn't ever want anything to do with me, just all of them. And it's wild to think about that these kinds of things go on in families, but they do. And I don't think that any family is normal. What is the normal? There is no normal. In fact, my own husband, he got notice of his sister's passing on Facebook. Like, what is wrong with people? Like, they know our telephone numbers. They did that even to his brother. There's 2 brothers that are still living whose sister passed away, and they made no reference to them at all whatsoever in the obituary, or contacted them in advance of a Facebook post, public to everybody else. Like, so that the way that things have developed in our country with families and dynamics and telling the truth and being based in reality, I decided, guess what? We're going to have a little chat. And I'm going to say the things, because I'm not taking the heat, and I don't accept being put upon as if all of these things were my fault. And if I'm somehow, the worst person in the whole world, that you can't even have me be a part of the family. Like, what is that? That is that's warfare, is what that is. My father's a military man, right? So he basically left home at 17, enlisted in the military. The military saw in him what they need for, leadership apparently, and sent him to OCS. He went to officer candidate school, then he went to ranger school, then, and my mom and him were already jumping out of airplanes in Del Mar. So, my mom was a brave. She could have gone places too, but my father instead went places because he had my mom supporting him, raising the family, so he could go off and play war. And so then when he came back, he didn't like what he had. And so apparently now it's warfare against, his wife, who decided that, she's not putting up with the BS anymore, with the alcoholic still drinking, leaving her alone after the kids are already out of the house. So, it's just, there has been so much that has happened in my family that seeing the kinds of things that go on even still today with the ostracizing and the shunning. I'm speaking on behalf of me and my mom, may she rest in peace, because the way that they treated her was reprehensible. And I'll be speaking about that with regard to Alzheimer's, dementia, and powers of attorney, wills, and theft of funds, probate matter. So these are people in a nuclear family that turned against members of that family and caused great harm to this day. And then, run around acting like, oh yeah, that's her, she's the black sheep of the family. No, I reject that. And this channel is about like correcting that ship, righting that ship, and saying, no, I'm going to speak about it. This is my truth. This is my reality. This is what happened. And as I sip my chai latte, I do it with time for truth, because I don't appreciate being disrespected, actually, especially after working really hard to right my own ship, to discard those things that I had learned in that dysfunctional family that hurt me later in life, with no support system. And so this is time for truth. And I'm feeling much better than I did last week after all those doggone doctor's appointments. I have more to say about all that. But one day at a time, I am making it through, and I hope to do a few more videos this week coming up and talk about the Alzheimer's, powers of attorneys, my personal experience with what happened with my mom with that. So I hope everybody has a good day, and don't ever let anybody step on you or on your achievements. If you've worked hard to overcome challenges in your life, then that is your Medal of Honor. That is your badge of courage. That means you get to stand up and speak about what it is, where you've come from, those things that were hard, those things that you've overcome, because all of us have the right to do that. We get to stop and say, wait, is this the direction I want to be moving in? Is it, or do I need to change course? And if so, what do I do about that? And so I'm making those changes. I've changed course many times in my life. I'm not afraid to do it. And more people should be have courage to do that. Whatever way you're going, if it's no longer the right way, stop, assess, change course. It's okay. Most importantly is being honest and being based in reality. That's the most important thing, because then nobody can find fault with anything, because it is based in truth. So on that note, I'll say I wish you all a very, very, very happy new week in February of 2026. I cannot believe it's already February. It's been freezing here, absolutely frigid. Having lived in Iowa, I didn't really think Delaware would get this cold, but this week it's been that cold. And so I'm going to also let you know that I got a brand new phone so that I can do these videos. I hope it comes out well. My other phone wasn't doing that great, so we'll see how it goes. I'm going to make more videos to say hi and bye. Catch you later.